Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we are just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I am a women's fiction author. And today what we're going to talk about is why it's important to have an author brand. Long ago, when my first novel was published, I read a book, and I don't really remember even how I came across this book or where I found it. But it was, and it probably looks backwards to the camera, but it's called Build Your Own Life Brand, and it was written by Stedman Graham, who is Oprah Winfrey's partner. So I don't know, maybe it just interested me when I went to the bookstore. I just picked it up kind of randomly, and I will read just about anything. So it worked out, right? So I read it, and it was very interesting, and it was all about sort of having a life brand, having a brand for yourself and for your life. So it's very interesting. I put it aside. I kind of forgot about it, didn't think about it again. So at that time, so this is the early 2000s, like 2001, and there wasn't a lot of talk about author branding yet, or even author platforms. So I didn't really think about it, but over time, I started seeing that over and over again. I started seeing that people were talking about having that author brand, having an author platform, and I wasn't really quite sure what they were talking about. So obviously, right, so big companies, Starbucks, Coke, they all have their brand. They promote their brand, but what is an author promoting really? Because you're just an author, right? So this is what was my thinking back then. But then I noticed, right, that no, you do need to have your brand. And I thought back to this book and what he was talking about, because one of the reasons that I actually really liked his book, and one of the reasons I actually still own it and it still sits on my shelf, is because he didn't look at brands as only as, a big business. A big business has to have their brand, right? Apple has to represent this or this or this. But it was more of, you as an individual, which really talks to me as an author, right? So as an author, really all I am is just an individual who writes books. But we do need to have a brand. And what does that mean, really? Okay, so what I want to look at today is why this actually does matter, and why it helps you as a writer to understand your brand, understand that you actually have a brand, even if you don't think you do, and why that's important. Okay, so the first thing is that a brand has to be larger than you. So it is about you, but it has to be larger than you, right? So as just me as an individual, I do have my brand. So my brand is everything, right? It's everything that I believe. It's everything that my values. It's sort of my motivations. It's the things that I wear or don't wear. I'm not, like, right now, I'm not actually wearing makeup because it's like I've got a busy day plan. I'm going to the pool. I don't want to put a bunch of makeup on. That's actually my brand in a way, right? I'm just a regular person, and I put on my makeup when I have to. I'm actually allergic to makeup, so I try to wear as little as possible. And so it ends up being a brand. So I'm not like, overly made up. I'm just kind of the normal average mom kind of person, right? So that does become a brand for me as a person. As an author, it's a little different. But the first thing then is that your brand should be a little larger than you. And Stedman gives a really great example, right? He has the example of Nelson Mandela, and how he spent 27 years in jail for his beliefs and for him trying to free his nation, right, from oppression. And so he, 27 years of being locked up, of probably being very lonely, of being in a cell, of not eating well, of being cold, of all the terrible things that happens when you're imprisoned. And he says, so just imagine if he had just one day said, okay, you know what? I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of being lonely. I'm tired of eating crappy food. I'm tired of being in this cell. Just tell me what you want me to do. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to tell people that it's okay for everybody to decide, like, where you live, what you do, what do you want me to tell people? I'll just go ahead and tell them whatever you want. If you'll just let me out of here, give me a cheeseburger and let me out, right? So he says, what would have happened to his brand if he had done that, right? So it took a lot of courage for him. It took a lot of courage and bravery for him to stick to his beliefs and to his values and to what he knew was right, and to continue down that road until finally one day, right, he was finally released, and he was able to free his nation from from bondage, and so he stood for something. His if he hadn't done that, then what would have happened to him and his brand, and so his reputation, right? So your brand is part of your reputation. So not that we're all going to do that, right? So we're writers. We're not going to. It doesn't have to be that crazy and intense, because we're not all fighting for something like that. It might be, but you might not be, right? Depends on what you're writing and what your goals are. But for most of us, we still want to have a brand that is larger than us. What is it that you are trying to achieve with your books? And again, it doesn't have to be hugely massive. Like, one of the things that I've been reading a lot about just on social media, just kind of scrolling through and seeing what reader groups are saying. And a lot of people are like, can you please recommend a book that isn't so dark and heavy? I just want to read something fun. I just want to read something light. I just want something funny. So right now, in this time in history, people are feeling a little overwhelmed with everything that is going on, and illnesses and lockdowns and just everything that is happening, and they just don't want to read anything that's going to be depressing and sad. At least some of these people that I've been noticing, right? So what if your brand is that you actually do write like romantic comedies, or you write something light, or you write like something that's just easy reading and fun? You shouldn't change to write that, because you have to be true to who you are. Again, you have to be true to who your brand. But if your brand is that, then you're in a perfect place right now to write what you like, to write what you represent, to show your brand to people, because they're going to want that, right? They want that brand, they want that, and that is sort of larger than yourself. You're entertaining people. You're taking them away from the craziness that might be their life right now, and that's important, right? So it's larger than just you. My brand represents happiness. My brand represents comedy and humor and fun. Now that might not be your brand. So your brand might be like just deeper. Like, I want people to dive deep into emotions and understand what it's like to feel loneliness or pain or whatever, right? And that might be your brand. So this audience that wants the happy and fun and the getting away isn't your audience, but there might be another audience who's like, yeah, actually, I want to understand what it's like to feel lonely and being away from people. And if I read this book and it gives me some insight, then that's what I want, right? So every audience wants something different, but what is your brand? What are you offering to your brand? And that it goes on to my second point. So the first one, then again, is just find something deeper than yourself. What is it that your brand represents? What is it that you that the audience is going to see when they look at you as the author of such and such book, right? The other thing is that what value are you bringing? So your brands bring value to people. Okay, so let me give you an example. So again, when I first started writing, I think it was around the same time, 2001, I think it was 2001. And I got my first book. And so my husband surprised me. He's like, I loved those little Audi TTs, the little ones. I don't know if you've seen them out in the road, but they look like little bugs kind of, but they're kind of squished. And anyhow, they were really cool looking. So I really liked them. My husband ended up surprising me and saying, I'm going to get you that car. It's going to be your author car, tiny little thing, just good enough for you to go to book signings and all that. So I was really excited, traded in our Honda, got the Audi. Biggest problem ever. That car was beautiful. Yes, it got great gas mileage, went super fast. It was a lot of fun, but it was a huge problem. It would break down all the time. Every time it broke down, it was crazy expensive to fix it. I ended up having like the air conditioning go out, because the way the car is made, the air conditioning, whatever it is, sits right under compressor, I don't know, sits right under the front of your car. So if you pull your car into like a parking spot too much, you could damage that. So I remember taking it in, and they're like, and that was another thing, is the service was terrible. The lady's like, well, you did this, you broke it. It's like, well, I didn't break it. I just parked my car, I might have, I mean, who knows, right? What caused it is maybe it's poor design. Like, should it really be there when people are pulling up to, but the point is that the service was terrible. The people that were in the service department weren't helpful. A lot of times they blamed the customer. The parts were expensive. It was just a really bad experience. So you would think of like, and people do, right? They think of Audis as this like really great brand, but to me, I had a different experience. So did they bring value to me? No, they didn't. So to me, that brand is overinflated. They did not bring value to me. I will never buy another Audi. I'm really happy with my Hondas now. You know, that's what I'm buying. But so sometimes, right, the brand doesn't bring the value that it's supposed to. So we're going to talk more about that too, what your brand should do. But it should, you know, as far as like, you know, living up to its name and its expectations. But so your brand should bring value. So whatever it is that you know, if you're giving these readers who want to light read what they want, you're bringing value to them. It's valuable to them because it brings them an emotion, an experience that they want to have. So how does your brand bring value to your customers, to your clients? And as writers, our brand brings value by giving them the emotional experience that they want, the travel that they're looking for. Maybe if they're looking to experience a different, you know, a location, or to see what it's like to go here and there. Adventure, they might be looking for adventure, right? So they might read a book that takes them, you know, there's a mystery or romantic suspense. So what is it what kind of value are you bringing to your customers, clients and readers? Not only though through your book, but through everything else. So readers like to connect with their authors, right? The authors that they like. They want to go onto social media and actually see you there and like your page and have you make comments and do that. They want that because they want that connection. And especially in today's very virtual world that we're probably going to stay a lot in, right? So we're going back into, you know, into society, but a lot of stuff is going to stay online. A lot of things are going to stay that way because people have gotten used to that. And a lot of people actually like that, right? They like to be able to go online and connect with people right away. So that's another way that you're bringing value to your readers, is giving them those extras of your time and your attention, and having sometimes things like contests or something that it's exciting for them, right? Like, oh wow, I can, you know, go in here and enter the contest to get her first book or whatever, right? So so all these extra things that your brand brings to them, it's valuable to the reader, and so, you know, brands that bring value do better. So you are giving them something that's larger than yourself. You're giving them a valuable product or valuable service. Okay, and the other thing that I mentioned was that you want to meet the expectations of the market, of the reader. So brands do that, right? So people know what to expect from that brand, and you meet those expectations. If you don't, okay, so for example, Audi did not meet my expectations, and so what happens is the customer gets disappointed, they get angry, they get frustrated, whatever, right? And they don't want to deal with your brand anymore. They're like, okay, get it. This brand is not what it promised to be. Same thing with your books. So if you are promising a fun, light read, and then it gets sort of deep and introspective and something, you know, and then it ends up being something other than what they expected, what's going to happen is the reader's going to be disappointed. They're going to be frustrated. They're not going to want to read your book again because your brand didn't meet the expectations that they had. And, you know, for most people that are writing at least genre fiction, readers have a very set expectation of what that genre is going to be like, right? If I'm writing romance, I really can't kill off my heroine. It's really not going to work because there has to be a romance and there has to be a happily ever after at the end. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You know, if you're writing a thriller or a crime novel, we really want the bad guy to go to jail at the end, get caught or something, right? So we don't want them to actually get away with what they're doing and, become rich and super successful most of the time. I have actually read novels like that where the person changes, but that's a different type of novel, right? But if this is really, really the evil bad guy, this is the villain, we want the villain to be caught at the end. That's the satisfying end for that genre. So, you want to meet that genre expectation. You also want to meet the reader's expectation for you as the brand. What type of books do you write? I don't know how many people have ever read like the Nicholas Sparks book. It's, he has a very definite brand. Like, what's going to happen. There's going to be some kind of tragic romance. Somebody is going to die in his books. So, but people expect that because they understand that that's his brand. That's who he has become. And a lot of his novels take place even in a similar setting, right? I think it's North Carolina. I don't know. But it's, he has a definite brand. And people know when they buy his books what to expect. Same with Stephen King, although he seems to have changed a little bit of like the types of books that he writes. But most of the time, right, at least some of his older books, they were you knew exactly what a Stephen King book and what his brand was going to be like. Not only horror, but a certain type of horror. Okay, so meeting expectations is another thing that your brand needs to do. You need to meet the expectation of that market, of that readership. Okay, another thing that a brand is it's very focused. So once you decide, like, this is my brand and this is what my writing represents, this is what I as the writer represent, then you want to stick to that. Not that you can't ever change, because you can, or you can expand on your brand a little bit, but it should be very focused. So, I mean, you think about like Starbucks. Okay, I can go to Starbucks and I can get a snack. I can get a cake pop. I can get tea, right? But that's not what they're known for. They're very focused on coffee. And, going back and like reading their mission statements and all of that, it was, having a place to go to in between your work and home. So this is what their vision was originally, was like an in-between place where people can kind of kick back and relax, have a cup of coffee, talk to friends or whatever. I don't think that that's what it is, though. That might have been like the original mission of Starbucks. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. But anyhow, the guy who started it, I should know that, but I forgot. But anyhow, Howard something. And, okay, so I'm drawing a blank. But so his original mission was this, right? That have this place. But now it seems to have changed. So when I think of Starbucks, their brand is not actually terrific coffee, but decent coffee and quick. So I can go into Starbucks, I can get a coffee, and I can get various, like, it's a treat, right? So I can get not only my coffee, I can get all these fancy kind of frappuccinos and this and that. I can get specialty coffees that are good, and I can be on my way. And so maybe sorry, my dogs. Okay, so now it becomes just getting this and continuing to wherever I'm going. So having this treat as I'm driving to work or as I'm driving home. So that is their brand, right? Their brand is to have that sort of quick coffee that tastes good, that is a treat, that that's pretty much what I think about, at least. I don't know, you might think of something kind of different, but that seems to be their brand. And it doesn't really, but it's very focused, right? It's very focused on coffees and different flavors of coffee and getting to the customer as fast as possible. Whereas it could be, even though they have other things, it's not, that's not the focus of what their brand is. So for you, it's the same thing. So you might write different types of romantic suspense, right? It might have different settings each time. It might expand in certain directions, but it's always very focused. You typically have similar themes to your stories as a brand or as a writer. Again, look at Nicholas Sparks, right? He has very similar types of themes, even though the stories are different. They're very similar in their brand and their themes and the way he writes and his style and all of that. And all that is part of that author brand. Okay, so being very focused on what it is that you want to say and what you want the reader to get out of this book. Okay, and then the last thing I want to say about brands is just that it takes time to develop. So don't feel like, okay, I don't have a brand right now. I don't have no idea what my brand is. That's okay. It comes over time. So as you start to write your books and you write your first one, you write your second one and so forth, you'll start seeing yourself that there is some kind of theme or something that connects these books. You can't actively create your brand, right? So you can say, okay, well, I want my brand to be about this. And one of the things that, again, I liked about this book was that he talks about the life brand, like what is your brand that you want the world to see. And he makes a really good statement in here at one point where he says, you know, if you don't actually create your brand, what happens is, and you don't actually show your brand by your actions, by what you do, by what you wear, by what you say, by what, you know, all of that, then the brand gets created for you by other people. So other people will decide like who you are and what you represent and what, you know, all of that. And you don't really want that, right? I mean, you don't want somebody else's stereotype of who you are. You want to have your own brand. We kind of talked about this last time, right? About how people want to wear their masks and have their identity or have their persona. So this is in a way that persona that you're creating. Not that you want to have that fake person. I mean, it's not that one. It's not what I'm saying at all. It's like not creating a fake person, but creating the real you. Like, what is your brand? What do you really believe in? What do you really want other people to see you as, right? What are your values? What are your goals in life? And how are you showing people that this is what you are? Again, it becomes more important. I'm talking to writers, but as a person also, right, this is helpful to understand it, because if you understand that, then it becomes easier to actually portray that brand. It's like, okay, well, if I'm a person that values and believes in health, I really don't want to go out and, I don't know, you know, eat candy bars. I don't want to, that's not how I want to represent myself, because I want people to see me as healthy and fit, and that's, you know, my brand that I want people to see me as, right? So if that's the way that you want other people to see you, then you don't want to kind of confuse that. You want to get rid of the unhealthy things that don't represent what your beliefs and values are. So that starts to become your brand. The more you talk about eating healthy, the more you actually are healthy, the more exercise you have. If that's your brand. If that's not your brand, right? So it doesn't even have to be really anything positive. Like, it could be that I totally enjoy drinking wine every Friday night. that is, you know, that's part of my brand, is I love having a glass of wine or whatever, right? That's cool. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is, right? Hopefully it's more on the positive side, just because you want to be healthy and all of that. But it doesn't matter what the brand is. It's just that it should be yours, and it should be something that you create, and that it does take time to develop. And the more you write, the more you're going to see, like, okay, this is what I'm showing with my writing. This is what I'm blogging about. This is what I'm writing about on my social media. And again, going back to being focused, right? You want to be focused on that. So whatever it is that your brand is, that's what you should be showing on your social media and all of that. I happen to love dogs. You heard them barking. So go to my social media sites, and that's what you will see. You will see that I do talk about dogs a lot. That has nothing to do with my writing, really, although I do try to put dogs into my writing sometimes. But it has to do with me as who I am, and that is sort of part of me, right? Part of my brand. And when you're branding you're not really branding your books, you are branding yourself. You are the brand that writes these type of books. Your books become the brand that represents you as the author, and vice versa. Okay, so hopefully that is clear, and hopefully that helps you to kind of understand branding a little bit, and how you can, you know, why it's important, why it matters. And it matters because that's what readers, that's how you're going to connect to your readers, right? It's like a magnet. They're going to be attracted to this brand because it's something that they like as well. They like that brand. They like what you represent, and so they're attracted to you. Okay, so again, hopefully this is helpful. If it is, please hit that like button and share this video with other writer friends that you think this might help. And have a wonderful week. I will see you again next Friday.